Let's hobnob up this morning around some trending stories, current affairs in our country with Sam Kagbo, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He joins us virtually. Good morning and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. Now, let's begin with an international story where we just saw this story that the President of the United States says he's considering invoking the 1807 Insurrection Act due to the situation in Los Angeles. In the first place, what do you make of that? What does all of that imply?
It's a desire of the president to deploy the military and federalize the National Guard to address what he characterized as a rebellious situation, because that's what the act anticipates. There is an ongoing, I think there is even a state, Los Angeles has even sued, claiming that the situation has not ripened to authorize the president to deploy National Guard and bypass the state legislature or the governor, because the act specifically prescribed that for you to deploy the National Guard, you would have had to have what? A call for that, either by a state assembly or by the governor. And in some instances where you have an exception is when you are to enforce a federal law. But in this situation, what started as a peaceful protest within a county in Los Angeles, the immediate and swift reaction of President Trump is to deploy about 700 National Guard to the situation. And the position of the governor of the state is that that particular act aggravated the situation and provoke the reaction of the protesters, because to them, the situation was already under control and there was no need at all. And let's put it this way, the act, like it said, I think it was passed into law by Jefferson way back in 1807, about March 1807, and it has been rarely used. All presidents have been very cautious because of its implication. Yes, it was frequently used during the Civil War era and during the Civil Rights era. In recent times, as is the last time it was used, it was in 1992 in response to the riots after the killing of King. And thereafter, the state had always been very cautious and had never really contemplated using the National Guard, because when you deploy the National Guard, what that one simply means is that to some extent you are suspending fundamental rights. And the right to protest is a fundamental right. It's a right given by the American Constitution to the American citizens. For you to respond so swiftly and in the manner that you deploy, I think some of the state legislatures who had spoken about this, they said, President Trump is acting the script, is simulating the situation to justify his stance that his government is one of a no-nonsense one and is one of law and order.
One wonders, Mr. Kagbo, you know, how this will end, because on the one hand, that is not an emergency declaration, which means the governor is still in office. So again, that's more than that's more than 200 years. It's more than 200-year-old law now being enforced, and here we are. Let's come back home very quickly. Something that's taken a while as well is this story about Chibok. The survivors still seem to be waiting for justice. I'm just wondering, how long does it have to take? Because it'll look like since 2014, more than 10 years now, there is no closure for a good number of these people.
I like the way you put it. How long does it really have to take for a citizen to enjoy the protection and attention of the government? It is not pleasant to say that what we here as a nation is known for is that we only attend to situations that hit the limelight or the headlines. The moment things are taken off the burner or off the headlines, we forget about it. But government has to be deliberate and consistent and persistent in its effort and duty to the citizenry. You know, the Chibok girls, not just the Chibok girls, those who have suffered under Boko Haram and banditry in general, they need the support of the state because they have suffered, and the only way they can feel back as part and parcel of the national spirit is the attention they get from the state. And I'm hopeful that very soon we have a ministry that is seriously attending to these issues, because it is not right that you just dump them out there and wait for another limelight. Now that you are bringing it back to the fore, it would jog them up, and you would see some frenzy. But thereafter, the moment you forget about it, they are forgotten. People are all over IDP camps. All of these ones are people are Nigerians who require and deserving of the state protection and the state succor.
Well, there are many comments that have gone ahead, one of which is from the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar saying, you know, that this ought to have been nipped in the bud within the first 6 months of any government. But hey, that's where we are today. I guess we'll see how all of that plays out. In about 30 seconds to 1 minute, talk to us about your take on the mecca of sorts that the president's Lagos residence became in the wake of this his last trip to Lagos.
Well, I would think that for the politician, the best bride in town today is President Tinubu, and I think they are working on the proposition that that's the man to beat in the 2027 election, and that if you want to be part of the winning team in 2027, you have to be on his side. You know, we do not have a very strong, purposeful, and effective, proactive opposition. People cannot really live outside government and government patronage. They cannot live outside the spoils they get from government. And when after 1-2 years they are out of government, it's like a fish out of water. They try by all means to go back into the thick and thin of it. That is what is happening at that elite level. They are going back to realign with President Tinubu, believing that, oh, President Tinubu has a magic wand for winning the election. I think the myth that Tinubu has been able to sell and which they have bought is that if he can win an election when he was out of government and in spite of all the opposition and the challenges that they had to surmount, it may be impossible for you to defeat him during the election. But to me, that by itself is self-defeating, because in politics, you cannot speak in absolute terms, and you cannot really have a very definite mathematical measurement. Anything can happen. If this opposition is serious, they put their heart together, they can put in a very formidable force. Because at the end of the day, that's politics at the elite level. What about down there? Nobody has given us any scientific measurement or proposition as to what the people feel and what the people would do on election day. So to me, it's a shame anyway. But that's who we are. People.
Yes, well, Mr. Kagbo, you said something at the beginning, you know, talking about, you know, the fact that we don't have a virile opposition. Now, what does that
That's what
depict?
It is.
What does that mean? What does that imply? What does that connote for the entire democratic experience of our people?
Yeah, it's the opportunistic nature of the political class. You know, these are pampered people.
So essentially, my apologies. So essentially, you're saying that
yes,
there is nothing we can do about it. We are at the mercy of the political class that we have, and there is absolutely nothing we can do about it.
Well, we as a people, when pushed to the wall, we can do something about it. But I think in order to forestall the wrath of the people, that's why you have the politicians coming in as a buffer. Mind you, politics in itself is a profession, and the Constitution has been very generous to politicians. It has given them the what? The opportunity and power to constitute the government of the day and the personnel of governance. So it's a profession, it's a career that not all of us can go into. But mind you, while they do their own game, we have our votes. And the votes, to me, how do we galvanize it? Yes, we do not have that collective spirit or mechanism for collectivizing the aspiration of the people outside the frail mechanism of politics and political parties. Okay. If we had developed like Western countries whereby you are born into a political party with its own ideology and its own tactics, we may have been able to have a thought force or realign ourselves outside the weak political parties and perhaps seize back government and bring it back to the people.
Okay. All right. We have to thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm looking forward to a time where we'll have a more extended conversation with you on the issues raised so far. Sam Kagbo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.